Alliance Credit Union. Welcome to Good Money Moves, featuring Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union and Andy Brownell. Here's Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk, 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome to Good Money Moves, News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. I'm Andy Brownell with Jenna Taubel, Director of Brand and Digital Member Experience at First Alliance Credit Union. Good morning, Jenna.
Hey, Andy.
Last week, we talked about how to keep more of your green in honor of St. Patrick's Day. What's the Good Money Moves topic for today?
Well, Andy, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite financial topics to discuss on this program, and that is teaching your kids about managing money, also known as financial literacy.
Yep, get them started early.
Yeah. And the reason why this is really why it's essential to teach financial literacy to your kids is because they are going to be interacting with money in some way, shape, or form their entire lives. And the more financial literate they are now, the easier time they're going to have just managing their money. But also, they're going to have an easier time reaching their own financial goals and becoming more financially secure as adults. So really having a good foundation of financial literacy just allows kids to learn early on how to do things like save for a goal, set up a spending plan for their money, also known as a budget, and even just how to start to live within their means, even when their means is very limited as a kid. And it's also important that parents teach their children financial literacy because it's not typically something they're going to learn about in school. Only 16% of U.S. high school students are required to take some kind of personal finance course. There is actually a bill that was just recently introduced at the Capitol in an attempt to make it a required part of high school curriculums in Minnesota, but nothing has passed at this point. It's just floating around up there. But even if it were passed, you as a parent will still have a huge influence on how your kids learn to manage their money and make financial decisions. So being a part of that education and conversation with your kids early on is very important.
Absolutely. That's one thing you learn once you become a parent. Regardless if you want to be a mentor, you are a mentor.
Yes, exactly.
And they will mimic you for the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
So I guess maybe just to get started, what's the first tip you have for us, or at least those in our audience who have children or grandchildren who could use some guidance?
Yeah. Well, I kind of mentioned this already, but start early. You can really start teaching kids some of the basics of money when they're as young as like 2 or 3 years old. As soon as they have the ability to have concept of language, you can start to teach them about the differences between coins and money, help them sort it out, help them count it. And you can, also do things like pay for items with cash and show your kids what you're doing. Show them exactly how many dollars you're spending on whatever item it is you're purchasing at the store. And really what this does is it just helps to normalize the presence of money in the child's life and helps them really begin to understand that this isn't just something you learn about in math class with counting, but it actually has tangible, physical part of their life, right? So that's a really big thing for helping kids learn. And it might not seem like that big of a deal, but a lot of parents don't like talking about money. Especially with their kids. It can be a really stressful topic. And some parents might feel really embarrassed about some of the choices they have made, but that's okay. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not have made perfect financial choices throughout your entire life. Hopefully it's something that your kids can learn from so they don't make the same mistakes. And really just by starting to talk about financial literacy early, you can really help your child be more comfortable talking about those financial concepts around money, which will just help them be more likely to ask questions about money, like how much do you make? How do you decide where to spend your money? and even things like, why can't you get anything you want with your paycheck? So don't be afraid to answer these questions honestly with your kids. There's no reason not to tell your kids how much money you make, like that they should know that so they can understand where you're at financially and why you maybe tell them, well, we can't afford this today, but if this is really important to you, this is how we can make this happen, and have those types of conversations early on. But don't take that to mean that's too late. Let's say if your child is already a teenager and you've maybe never really talked about money with them much, it's not too late to start. It's never too late to start learning good financial habits.
You're talking about taking the cash out and actually showing them cash. Mm-hmm. And having that transaction occur in front of them. Mm-hmm. I thought, I wonder what the kids, if you don't do that and don't have the discussions with them, what they think about those little plastic cards, that they must be magical to them. If there's no explanation, you just hand this person a card and they let you have things.
Exactly. And I think we've talked about that briefly in a previous episode about psychologically the difference between that physical cash and just swiping that card, and how having that actual cash you have to give away changes how you feel about that transaction. So it's very true even for kids to give them that physical concept of money before they are introduced to things like debit cards, credit cards, or cryptocurrencies, or whatever the new next big thing is going to be as they become adults, right? They need to have that physical understanding. So it's not just numbers on their mobile app that's moving around all the time. It's has a meaning behind it.
When I was growing up, I got some of this from my parents. I mean, I was taught, allowances, have a savings account, spending plan, that part of it. But my dad was real secretive about, the big scope of money things, like how much he made, how the house is paid for, retirement, those kind of discussions. Yeah. And I know that with my kids, I tried to be more open about it, and especially about the mistakes I made when I was young, which were really big ones.
Yeah.
Just to say it's really easy to fall in these traps and to do these sort of things. Just be on guard. This is it's you didn't do something evil. You just made a mistake. And
exactly.
It'd be better to avoid it, but it's not the end of the world. You can fix it and you can move on, but it's not fun to fix it. Let's put it that way.
Yes, it is not. It's very stressful to fix those types of mistakes.
So what other tips you have for us about teaching financial literacy to the little ones?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but you do teach by example, whether you realize it or not. So we're all aware that children pick up habits from you as their parent, and, they may pick up a certain phrase you don't want them to pick up, or a certain action that you tend to do that you maybe prefer that they don't pick up. But that definitely extends to money habits too. So if you're constantly spending money going out to eat or making impulse purchases to kind of maybe soothe your stress, if you're like a stress shopper, I know some people like to go shopping when they're feeling really stressed out, those are coping skills and things that your kids are going to pick up on, and they will notice it, and then they will mimic you. So, and they're just going to end up doing the same thing that you did, when they get their money of their own. You are teaching by example, whether or not you realize it, and whether or not you're, that's what you're trying to teach them. They are always going to pick up on the habits you don't want them to pick up on. Just keep that in mind.
The bad ones.
They do. And so it's really important to try to model the money behaviors you want your children to have. So let them see you making a budget. Kids tend to be very visual and tactile learners. So if you can sit down with them and get your entire paycheck one month, or one paycheck in cash, and then use that envelope budgeting method to show them, again, physically and tactically, where all of that money goes in your budget each paycheck. So I get $2,000 a paycheck. $1,000 of it goes to the pay for the house. The other $1,000 goes to pay for the car and the groceries. Whatever. I mean, that's very basic budget, but you get the idea.
Sure.
So they can really understand just how much that paycheck, it seems like a really, really big number to them. And no matter how much money you make, kids are going to think it's a huge number. So, but showing them how that gets broken down and all of the priorities that you have to pay for, they are going to really internalize and better understand why they can't have a special treat when you go out, or maybe why they can have a special treat when you go out, because they understand, we budget so much money for special treats. So now when mom tells me, we don't have money for that, it's because we already spent all our money on special treats, and they'll hopefully be more understanding that they may still be disappointed, but they will have a better understanding of the why behind it. So another thing you can do to kind of help model this and teach this is, especially when they're younger, when you go out maybe grocery shopping and you take them with you, you make a list of the things that you're going to buy at the grocery store. And as you're shopping, talk out loud that, you'd really like to get this bag of potato chips, but it's not on the list. So we're going to pass this time because I need to buy X, Y, and Z instead. So really just verbalizing and talking those thought processes out that you're going through in your head anyway, but verbalizing that so kids are understanding the why behind the decision with the money. And it's also really important to talk about money with your spouse and discuss things like monthly bills and future goals, because this is, again, modeling for your kids how to have those conversations with their future spouse and making sure that you guys are on the same page with how that money's being spent. And if you're not, coming to a consensus together in a healthy way. Right. So really, the better example you set for your children, the more likely they are to develop good money habits themselves.
I always remember the eureka moment when it happened to one of my kids, when they were finally working and pulling in a fairly regular paycheck. Yeah. And they were going to go grab something to eat somewhere. And they came home empty-handed. And I said, I thought you said you were going to pick up, whatever, tacos or whatever. Yeah. And the one of the kids said, I sat there and realized that would be almost an hour and a half of my day's pay.
Yeah.
And I said, You got it. Good deal.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll take a break right now. We're talking about financial literacy for children with Jenna Taubel, First Alliance Credit Union. It's Good Money Moves on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good Money Moves continues in moments with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
I'm Martin Hoke.
And Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back to Good Money Moves. I'm Andy Brownell with Jenna Taubel, First Alliance Credit Union. We're talking about children and financial literacy. And Jenna, we talked about, the basics of the little ones, teaching them about bills and coins and the concept that you use money to purchase the things you want, and mentoring them so they can have some healthy habits when they're adults. What else do you have for us as far as financial literacy for children?
Yes. So one thing we haven't talked about yet is allowances. Now, some families like to use an allowance to help their kids learn money management skills.
It can be controversial, right?
It can be very controversial because there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. But I have found that the method that tends to work best is when you provide some structure and rules around how your kids can earn and use that money that you're giving them.
Use the term earn in there, thankfully.
Yes. Yeah. I'll dig into a little bit more about what I mean by that in a second here. But when you're giving an allowance, I mean, you can certainly do it where you just give the kids, $25 or whatever it is out of every paycheck, and you let them kind of run wild with it. That's one approach to allowance that some parents take. But again, the method that tends to work best when teaching kids money management skills via an allowance is providing them a system in which they can earn that money, and then also give them guidance on how to make smart choices with them using the money that they've earned. So for example, have a list of chores your kids can do around the house every pay period that you have, and then pay them based on the chores they've completed. Now, this structure gives kids the mindset that they're earning money that they get rather than simply receiving it just for existing in the home. And you can probably think of a very long list of chores that your children can do. Empty the dishwasher, load the dishwasher, clean off the table after dinner, keep their room clean, vacuum, wash and dry their clothes. And depending on how old your kids are, there's a variety of different things, mowing the lawn. If you have older kids, things like that can all be on that list. But what you can do is really just like set up maybe a whiteboard or something in your home with the list of chores that your kids can do throughout the month. And also list on there how much each chore is worth. And then let your kids choose to earn or not earn that money. And this is an important piece of that, giving them the choice in how much they are going to earn, because this is going to be a valuable lesson should something come up that they can't have because they didn't put in the work to earn the money they needed to have that thing.
Yeah, and tie the amount of work to the amount of money to give them that lesson. That the more work you put in, the more potential earnings.
Exactly. And then helping them understand how to then spend that money appropriately comes in the conversation around, okay, say how much of this should you be saving towards something big that you want, and how much of this money can be spent on whims, because it's okay to spend money on whims. We all do it. It's actually probably really good for your mental health sometimes to just buy that candy bar, especially when you're a kid or something. It's okay to do that, but helping them understand that they still need to be planning for other expenses coming up is very important. So making sure they have money kind of separated out between that savings and that spending is part of that allowance structure.
And even to get into it deeper, you can give them a sense of pride in the work that they have accomplished. I always remember one of my tasks as an older, when I was a teenager, was to keep the garage clean. So my dad would insist that, especially in the summer months, I would take the stuff out. I would hose off the floor, organize the shelves, and put things away where they're supposed to be put away. And I took great pride in that. I always remember after I moved away and got my own place, and I'd come back and Dad was not keeping it up as quite as well as I was. And for a lot of reasons, but yeah, it was kind of sad to see it go in decline. That was my garage. Oh well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great story. That's perfect.
Let's take another break, Jenna. We'll be back with more of Good Money Moves. We're talking about financial literacy for the children, teaching them the do's and don'ts of money. Coming up in a moment on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good Money Moves continues in moments with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. And Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back to Good Money Moves. Jenna Taubel with First Alliance Credit Union with us, talking about allowances in the last segment as we work our way through the basics of teaching the kids a little bit about financial literacy. Do you have any other, at least final tips maybe for us, Jenna, before we wrap things up?
Yeah, absolutely. The fun way to teach financial literacy with your kids is to use different games and activities that center around money. Let's face it, when you tell someone about financial literacy, you can kind of almost see their eyes glaze over. Talking money definitely does not have the most exciting reputation. So you can make it fun, though, especially for kids, by using games like Monopoly is a kind of an obvious go-to game. But there's other money-based learning games that exist out there. The Game of Life is a really good one. It simulates earning a paycheck and then being presented with multiple situations where you either earn or lose money. There's a little bit of chance involved in all of that, but it is a good way to kind of start your kids thinking about these things. The game Money Bags is a good option for younger players. It lets kids kind of collect, count, and exchange money as they play the game. But even games that aren't necessarily about money, like Settlers of Catan, for example, have players earning resources and then trying to figure out the most effective way to spend those resources. So if you have a little bit older kids who can strategize a little bit more, that is a really good one to help them learn resource management, which is really all that budgeting is. Sure. And of course, you can find, financial literacy games online as well. The US Mint website, for instance, has a game called Counting with Coins that helps you identify different coins and add them together. So that can be really good for your younger kids. You can also find, browser-based games like Money Magic, which is best for teenagers, or even games like Hit the Road, which is presented by the National Credit Union Administration. And then, of course, apps. If you want to download some apps on your phone for your kids to play to keep them occupied, that's more educational. Some examples would be Peter Pig's Money Counter, or for teenagers, you can get apps like Financial Football and the Stock Market Game. So there's no limit to how you can really teach your kids financial literacy. It's probably going to be a combination of all of the things that we really talked about today.
All we had was Monopoly and the Game of Life. That was it. The rest of that?
Yes.
Fantastic information as always, Jenna. And as you mentioned, this just scrapes the edge of this thing if you want to really delve into it.
Yeah.
So where can I find out more about ways I can give my children the gift of financial literacy?
Yes, as always, I encourage our listeners to visit our website, firstalliancecu.com. Get subscribed to our blog. We release new financial tips and advice every week. And we also have another fun way to help your kids learn financial literacy. Coming up here, and so make sure to follow us on social media. We're going to be announcing very soon some details about an upcoming youth financial literacy contest in the month of April. So be on the lookout for that. Yeah. You can also go back and listen to past episodes of this show at firstalliancecu.com/podcast or on krocnews.com. You can subscribe to Good Money Moves on Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. And if you love our show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Or if you have a financial topic you'd like us to cover or questions you'd like answered on Good Money Moves, please send me an email at marketing@firstalliancecu.com. And of course, I strongly encourage you to reach out to our team at First Alliance Credit Union so they can help you and your kids start making good money moves today.
I suppose bringing the kids into the credit union is a great idea.
Absolutely. Yes.
Add that to the list.
Yeah, get them comfortable coming into a financial institution. Absolutely.
All right. That's First Alliance Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA and an equal housing lender. Jenna Taubel, thank you again.
Absolutely.
All right. Until next week, when we will have another episode of Good Money Moves right here on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
This program has been paid for by First Alliance.